Hey there. I put together a sequence to share with you all based on exercises and principles talked about in Robert Schleip's Fascial Fitness. This is a great resource. If you're interested in learning more of the details of this, I suggest getting this book. But today we're going to work with the principles of fascia training: stretch, spring, feel, and revive. And I'll talk a little more about these principles as we go. So all you'll need is some small ball, a tennis ball. This is a Franklin Method fascia ball, but anything that's a bit on the firmer side feels really good, but you choose what feels best for your body. Some of us like a little denser, some a little softer. And we'll be using the wall today. So part of what I want to encourage with this sequence is to just get creative about how you interact with your environment around the house. I'm going to use the wall, but you could put your hands on a chair, on the kitchen counter, on the back of the couch. So get creative about where you do these moves. You can follow along with me right now, but then I hope that you will choose any exercise, any little piece, stretch, to do any time throughout the day. You don't have to do them all in order. So first, let's go over to the wall. Take the ball. We're going to start with the principle of revive, a little self-massage, and you're going to put the ball on the wall. And let's start with just rolling out our hip, the glute. A lot of us get really stiff and tight, especially when we're doing a lot of sitting, not moving enough. And I'm going to speed through this a little bit, but you follow along. Right now we're working with the hips and across the back of the pelvis. You can roll all the way to the other side. And with revive, it's about bringing more fluid supply, blood supply, hyaluronic acid, which is the lubrication for the connective tissue. When you feel stiff or tight, it usually indicates that there's not been enough movement, and compression can help with stimulating that fluidity. All right, let's move up to the lower back, your lumbar spine. There's a really thick sheet of connective tissue across your lumbar spine and the thoracic. That's called the thoracolumbar fascia. So we're just rolling up, down, side to side, capturing your brain's attention to be more aware. That's also the feel principle, getting more clarity of perception about where our body is in space and feeling our whole body. Let's move up to the shoulder. So you can start right between the shoulder blade and the spine and then just roll all around the shoulders, even up and down the center of your spine and over to the other side. And you notice how also I'm bending my knees, I'm moving my body in ways I might not have otherwise thought to, with a little rotation, so we get a little bit of stretch. Stretch doesn't have to mean a really big sensation. I'm kind of stretching up and down all those long lines of connective tissue that connect our feet all the way up to our head, hands to feet. All right, so now we've worked out a little compression, pressure through the whole back of the body and hips. Then you can also do the front of the hip a little bit. Let's do right around the hip bone, maybe into the inside of the pelvis, the iliacus part of the psoas. Do that a little bit on both sides. And remember, if you're on your own, I would encourage you to just stay with this as long as feels good. I realize now I'm moving kind of quickly. I could also press a bit more slowly and firmly. Could even roll out the belly a little bit. Sometimes that feels nice if we're having digestive issues, to roll around the belly. And then you can take the ball up and roll out the front of the shoulder and pecs. I know a lot of us get fairly stiff and closed off in the upper chest. So again, we can go a little quicker, kind of side to side, or a little deeper pressure. But the pressure, the amount of pressure is really up to you and what feels good to your body right now. It should not feel sharp. It might feel a little tender, and that's okay. That I'd say means you probably want to go a little slower, a little softer. Or just hold the pressure if you find a sticky spot until your body softens into it. Oh, I can feel my shoulders starting to let go now. Sometimes you just have to wait for that release. All right, so then you can put the ball off to the side. And we're going to just stretch out the chest where we just rolled out. So I can put my hand on the wall or the door frame and then just turn my body away from my arm. And you can stay for a more static stretch. You can also change the angle. You could be a little more dynamic about it and just change the angle more quickly. You can also add a little pulsing, a little bounce. But if you're feeling your neck tensing and scrunching, then I go with a slower, just hold. Let your hands spread out across the wall. You can bend your knees. So also now I get to stretch all the way under my arm, through my lats. All right, let's do the other side. So just varying the angle, maybe right in the center, static hold. Notice if your hand is bunching up, can you really spread your hand out, relax your backside, and then try changing the angle of the stretch. Maybe try a bit more dynamic, a bit more quick changes. Add some bounces for spring, for that principle of spring, to bring more elasticity to the tendons and the connective tissue. That helps with injury prevention. Because the more spring and recoil your tendons and connective tissue has, the less likely you are to all the way fall if you stumble. And you're better at catching yourself too. All right, so now let's go with both hands on the wall. Feet a comfortable distance apart. And I'm thinking this is essentially a plank. We're going to do some wall push-ups. This will also be for stretch, spring, and feel. I'm pointing my middle finger straight up to the ceiling, spreading my hands out, and then without actually changing the placement of your hands, just imagine the pinky side of your hand getting wider, and try to feel a connection to the back of your armpit. That's your serratus muscles. They're innervated by the same nerves that innervate your pinky and fourth finger. And then we're going to bend our elbows and push the wall away from you. So elbows out at a 45-degree angle. And as I rock forward, I'm keeping my torso in a long straight line. So there's a little bit of energy lift up the front of my body and the energy rolling down the back. So I feel my tailbone releasing down. Notice if you start to headbutt the wall, try to keep your head back in line with your spine. And keep pushing the wall away from you, even as you're coming toward the wall. So this is for feel, for building our clarity of perception, as well as strengthening around the shoulder girdle. And then let's turn it into spring. Jump away from the wall. Catch yourself. So that whole back line, connecting the big toe all the way up to the crown of your head, the eye socket, gets a little elastic recoil. This is good for the Achilles tendon too. And then you can play with the angle of your shoulder girdle, your spine. And just get creative. You can also do staggered hands, one up, one down. Cross them over. So a lot of this is about encouraging curiosity and natural movement potential, making the most of the potential that your body has. We could do one arm push-ups with a little jump. And if for some reason this bouncing away from the wall doesn't feel good to you, then just stick with the pressing and really trying to keep the tension out of your neck, keep wide across the lower back. And then shake that out a little bit, shake out your feet, your legs. And remember, this is all things you could do You just do that on the kitchen counter while you're working in the kitchen. You don't have to do this all in sequence. So now we're going to do what they call in the Fascial Fitness the flying eagle. So we're going to step back. It's basically like a down dog stretch in yoga, but we're using the wall. And you walk your hands down as far as you need to really feel a stretch in your hamstrings. And I want to bend my knees. We all should probably bend our knees a little bit just to give some slack. Now maybe you're up here on the wall and that already feels like enough stretch for you. Maybe your hands are on the seat of the chair, or the back of a chair, the back of the couch, the counter, table. So get creative. But find that spot where you can push through your hands, ground and spread your feet out, and notice if you're sagging in your lower back. Try to really draw the belly in and up. Maybe do a few little scapula isolations here. Find where the middle is, where you're not tensing your neck, and you can kind of spin your elbow creases to face toward each other and then up toward the ceiling. And then let's curl into a little cat stretch, round your back, and then arch. Feeling the full length of your spine, your throat coming in line with your pubic bone, and then the back of your skull in line with your tailbone. Now, if you've got any ruptured or strained discs, then maybe you just do the flexion and go to neutral. Maybe you just do the extension and go to neutral. You do what is best for your spine. And then let's get a little more fluid with it. They call this, in the Fascial Fitness book, they call it the snake dance. So I'm kind of snaking my spine side to side, and then I'm just getting curious about all the different ways I can move my spine. I can have soft elbows, soft knees, just kind of noodling around. This can all be done on the floor as well. So kind of like a wiggly cat stretch. And then you can come back up, maybe give your wrists a little bend. Some of that might be a lot of stretch for your wrists and forearms. And then let's walk it back out. So that was the cat stretch and the snake dance. Now let's do the flying eagle. So we start with walking our knees side to side. Now you can let the motion come from your spine, like we did in the snake dance. Now I'm initiating from a bend, a fold in the hip, knee, and ankle, and I'm keeping my torso pretty much the same shape. And then bend both knees, curl your tailbone under, shift your hips forward, lift up through your sternum, and just look straight in front of you, maybe a few inches up, but not all the way up to the ceiling, because we want to think of a long fluid line through the cervical spine. And then tuck your chin, curl back out. Try your best to do a little wave-like motion. Let's do that a few times. You curl tail to head, open the whole front wall of the body, chest expanding. Ooh, nice stretch in my calves. And then tuck your chin, head to tail. And again, you can keep going like that. You can also go down to the floor. So it's basically upward dog into down dog, dynamically moving from one shape to the other. And then come back to your down dog shape, a little fold in the hip. And now let's add a weight shift. So you're going to shift your weight onto the right foot, push evenly through both hands, float the other leg up, squaring your hips toward the floor, so I am parallel here still. And you can soften your elbows if you feel your shoulders scrunching, but try not to let the right arm sag entirely. And then rotate your pelvis open, bend that knee so you feel a stretch in the front of the hip. Maybe circle your foot and ankle around a few times. And then swing that foot forward for a nice calf stretch in the right leg. Let's add some spring to it. So bounce the front knee. Now if it didn't feel doable to lift your leg up like that, then just skip it. Just step forward, do the calf stretch. And then let's hold the front knee the same. Lift the back heel, let the back knee bend. So push through the big toe, second and third toe side of the ball of the foot. That's your big toe muscle getting a little more strength as we also get some more elasticity in the plantar fascia of the foot and soleus in your lower leg. Stretch that heel back. Slide the other foot back. Maybe lift that leg all the way up and then put that foot back down. Come up, shake out your hands if you need to. Do the wrists in and out, side to side. And then walk it back down. Let's do the other leg. So I find nice deep fold in the front of the hip. I'm letting my sit bones widen, so pelvic floor should relax, especially the back of the pelvic floor. Belly just gently drawing in and up as I shift my weight onto the left leg, reach the right leg back. And I'm keeping a little softness in the left knee. Parallel, both arms are straight or a little bit soft to keep the tension out of your neck. And then you can rotate pelvis open, bend that knee, circle that foot and ankle around in both directions. And then step forward. Static stretch for a moment. Square your hips toward the wall. And then bounce from the front knee. Neck is nice and easy, so I'm feeling my body as I move. And then let's keep the front knee the same and just bend the back knee and lift that heel up and down. You can also do this without your hands on the wall, just anywhere you're standing in the house. Magic number, about 5 to 10. And then you just stretch that heel back down. Maybe swing that leg back up. And then put that foot down. Walk your feet forward. Come up to standing. Shake it out again. Have a little wardrobe adjustment. And then one more sequence, sideways. So let's start with our feet all the way together. Hand, again, wall, kitchen counter, back of a chair. You're going to bend your elbow and push the wall away from you. So this is for strengthening the triceps. We're also getting a little stretch of the pecs to allow that bend of the elbow. And you can play with different angles of your hand. Let's go fingers forward. Fingers on the diagonal. Pushing the wall away from you even as you're bending toward the wall. And then add the spring to that. So feet can be together, or you can have a little wider stance, whatever you're more comfortable with. Change the angle with which you're landing. You can turn and look toward your hand, look away from your hand. So just being curious. Maybe there's an angle that feels really good and you want to stick with it. Maybe there's one that doesn't feel as good and you stick with it because you want to figure out, what do I need to change? Feel my body. Maybe I'm tensing my neck. Maybe I'm over-recruiting something that I could soften. And then let's do the, eagle wings, I think is what they call it in the Fascial Fitness book. But it's basically a side plank with side bend. So now feet can be together or apart. And I'm going to step mine a little bit apart. And then we're just going to side bend, push into the wall so you're not scrunching. Ground down through that outside foot. And then sweep your arm up and out. Thread the needle. We're going to bend our knees a little bit. One or both knees can bend. Look under that arm. And then roll your hips back open. Look back behind you. And come back to the side bend. Let's do that together again. First, I just lengthen through the fingertips, push through the hand against the wall, curl inward, not bracing or tensing anywhere, softening around the joints. This is for the lateral line, we open the chest, and the spiral line of connective tissue. One more time, the same. Curl in, it goes hip, ribs, shoulder, head, hip, ribs, shoulder, head, and then back to the side bend. And then let that go. kind of shake it, give it a little swing. So remember, we can, anywhere you are, you can swing your arms, swing your legs. Let's do that a few times. Sometimes we get too controlled and stiff in our habits. So now let's do the other side. First, feet are together or a little bit apart, and then we start with just a tricep press. So besides getting some more hydration to the connective tissue, we're also strengthening the muscles, getting more tensile strength in the tendons. Change the angle of your hand every now and then. Be curious about how can I bend my elbow and push the wall away without tensing my neck or gripping in my back side. And then you can add a jump to that. A little bouncy spring, building that elastic recoil, changing the angle. You can go high, low, front to back. And then let's find a spot kind of just a little bit below or in line with the shoulder, and it's a little bit in front of your shoulder, so not back behind you, because that's probably going to make you tense your neck. Make sure you can see your hand in your peripheral vision. Reach the other arm. Let's step our feet apart a little, lift them together, and then reach the other arm up. Shift your hip off to the side. Push the wall away from you. Ground down through your feet. Relax your toes. And then reach that arm up and out on the diagonal. Soften one or both knees. Thread the needle. Spiral through. And then hip, ribs, shoulder, head. Open the chest. Look back toward that hand. And then come back into the side bend. Let's do that again. Arm up and out. Drop your ear to your shoulder. And then curl in, hip, ribs, shoulder, head. Energy through the fingers, energy through the hand on the wall, and then hip, ribs, shoulder, head. Open the chest, and come back into the side bend. And again. And we can get creative and add a little spring to this too. You can bounce, pulse, if that feels good. Open, pulse to the back, and then side, and let that go. All right, my friends. So again, I encourage you to get creative about where and when you move your body in new and interesting ways. So you can use any of these exercises, but also just think of the principles. Self-massage for reviving the connective tissue, reviving your brain's experience of those stiff, tight, kind of dead zone areas, which is also related to the principle of feeling, bringing more clarity of perception and sensation. Stretch, which can be it's long static stretch, holding and melting into the stretch, but then you also want to do some bouncing, more elastic stretching. And then spring for tensile recall. All right, thank you, friends.